So this is part A of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo. And this is Saturday, the 30th of September 2023. One of the things that the American parasite Michael Wolff has done is to completely leave out the evil role that the evilness personified Rupert Dirty Murdoch, Dirty Digger Murdoch, has done in the form of paying criminals like a Margaret Thatcher worshipper, Rhodesia born racist scum Matthew Parris. Matthew Shit Parris, what does it he comes across as if he is different from the congenital liar and selfish morons like Liz Truss. But he is not. He is a self-confessed worshipper of Margaret Thatcher. When he was an MP, he claimed that people kept in poverty by the UK government were not justified in making the claims that the benefit that they were getting was not enough to live on. So this criminal, Matthew Shit Parris, claimed that he could live on £55 a week. Let's check on the fucking criminal's record. Fuck off, you sure or bachar Google shit. Sudaurirvua Sure, bachcha, fucking evil shit. Sure, bachcha, shit. One of the most predictable things that this parasite, racist liar, Matthew Parris does is to hop from one topic to another and from one theme to another without for any ethics or any morality. What he aims to do is to get himself noted as being part of the relevant narrative, even though that relevance is at the cost of denying the truth. For example, his comment during a question time appearance when David Dimbore was chairing that question time before Fiona, the evilness, took over. His comment about the NHS was that the NHS needed money and that he could pay, and people like him who could afford to pay for their care by the NHS should do so. Now, this was immediately, obviously, you cannot count the number of people clapping in a kind of studio when the images of people clapping are not accurately shown to the viewer. But there were clapping, so everything was kind of like typically appreciated by the audience, let's say. But the truth is that the whole principle of the NHS, the idea of the NHS, is the provision, the service of health care, regardless of the income of the person needing the care. Once you remove that universal principle and make a distinction between those who can afford to pay and those who can't, you destroy the whole principle, the foundation on which the NHS stands. Because once payments are introduced, there will be no universal equality, like the point of need. The point of need principle is the point of ability to pay, which is effectively breaking the social and non-profit foundation of the NHS and making it profit-based, privatizing health service, health market. So it's very subtle. What he said was very subtle, and it was well calculated with the intention to elicit the sounds of people clapping. But if he had told the truth about the principle of the NHS and then said what I have just said, the logical kind of progression or the outcome or the result, people wouldn't have clapped. In fact, they would have booed him, if anything. And the point he made in 1984, when he was still a member of parliament, conservative member of parliament, 1984 was at the height of Margaret Thatcher's incumbency in the post of Prime Minister, when he said that he could live as a single person, as a single man, so when he said that he could live on the benefit, he was challenged by world in action. Could he live? And he failed the challenge. But the reason why he said what he said in 1984 was nothing to do with the ability on his part to live, be able to live on the amount of money that the most poor were being given. It was to get himself noted and get himself the attention that he was making a sensible topical comment. Many people were thinking, as most people do think, the zombified ones, that the benefit claimants are getting too much. It is never too much. When it's a fraction of the amount of money spent every day by the haves, and the benefit recipients are given a fraction, a very small amount, and it is never enough to meet the course. It was never enough to meet the course in 1984. It has never been enough in the decades that have followed. In 2005, in July 2005, the liar Matthew Parris said that the electors in Bethnal Green and Bow earlier in the month had ousted Una King, and he openly said that those voters should be taught a lesson. And he said, with a Khudeela campaign, but actually this is what he was doing. He was answering one of the most powerful arguments that the Khudeela campaign was running against Crossrail whole plot, against Brick Lane. And Matthew Parris said that as a punishment for voting for George Galloway and ousting Una King, the government of the day, and it was a Tony Blair government, so called, should retaliate and pay to this particular, to this, well, the campaign, the plot for digging a hole in Brick Lane should be supported as a punishment for the electors of Bethnal Green and Bow. Brick Lane area fell within Bethnal Green and Bow, should be taught a lesson by forcing the crossrail hole through Brick Lane. That's what he said. And ever since what he did, we have actually sent him any question, any answer to any questions that arose from his boastful idiocy and racist incitement of hatred. Now, today's Times column, Sunak's a details man, but we need grand vision. This thing, grand vision, always is to do with the disastrous big money projects that government bureaucrats actually conjure up as apparent justification for really rewarding reactionary right wing conservative criminals, big business contractors. It is wrongly and falsely based John Maynard Keynes's so-called economic solution, big infrastructure project. The Keynes said that the big infrastructure projects were a big solution to the economic kind of backwardness and lack of progress. But there was never any test or examination or evidence to show that it was true. Keynes just what has become now the biggest lying pretext by all the non-Keynesian right wingers as well as the left wingers. For example, the Communist Morning Star is having a go at Sunak's recognition at last that HST Matthew Parris published his condemnation of the community in Brick Lane for being part of the electorate that voted against Una King in May 2005. The Khoodeelaar campaign is the only one that noted that at the time, on the day, as well as being the only movement since July 2005, referring to Matthew Parris as anti-Bangladeshi, anti-Brick Lane, comments. Matthew Parris in 2005 was part of the Tory narrative that falsely and wrongly and untruthfully spread the lie in the constituency, Bethnal Una King was physically under threat from Muslims, from Bangladeshi voters. It never was the case. But that's the line, that's the narrative, propaganda that they ran in the run up to the election of 5th of May 2005. Our campaign never exaggerated the facts and never does exaggerate the facts. And we stick to the absolute principled reliance on the exact faiths. For example, one, he said that the people who voted against Una King in 2005 and should be punished, what he was doing was totally denying the electoral rights, voting rights to the Bangladeshis, because it was the Bangladeshis who voted against Una King at the 2005 mayoral election. There was no organization, no spokesperson whatsoever, other than the Khoodeelaar campaign, that mentioned even mentioned Matthew Parris's attack on the Brick Lane population and the electors, let alone referred to the comprehensive, consistent, analytical, and evidential follow ups that we have been running. The Times today says Sunak's a details man, but we need a grand vision. What he is doing, he is making the same false claim about HS2 being desirable as he made the claims about cross plot against Brick Lane. And he said at one time, after July 2005, when it was clear that then incumbent mayor at the expense of London, Ken Lyings to Livingston, was not able to make any headway in stopping the campaign to stop the Brick Lane whole plot by Crossrail. Matthew Parris became absolutely desperate, and he published a desperate column dedicated to an irrational repeat of his main call of July 2005. And the 2005 kind of election and the behavior of the Bangladeshi part of the electorate was in effect disowned by Matthew Parris, who and disregarded by Matthew Parris, who did not recognize the electoral rights of the people to vote the way they wanted to vote. Now, today's Times carries this piece which says now this liar has confected a lie about the picture that appears in the Times with his article about HS2. He says that he went on a flight piloted by his friend who was working to get his pilot's license. How stupid! Somebody who is working to their pilot's license would be stupid to take on a spectator. But that's what happened. In fact, it was worse than that because this whole tale is a lie. It was Parris who wanted to spin for HS2. So he would do anything to appear to be fact based. And you could not get more fact based than being able to fly over a great wide gash of orange subsoil that stretched diagonally in a dead straight line across our path, that is his and his trainee pilot friend, almost from horizon to horizon. We could see JCBs operating piles of steel and concrete, fleets of vans and lorries, and the ant like figures of workmen. This, I realized, was HS2 under construction. The word well advanced, the work well advanced looked impressive, grand even, more than a railway line, a statement about reaching out north to south and east to west, a statement about modern transport connections, about British civil engineering, about investment, about confidence. This is rubbish. How could this be treated as a serious statement of fact and truth when this is all a spin? Because he is hiding, typically, he is a self confessed liar. He has lied many times about lying in the past. All the main tabloid outlets, the Murdoch scum, the Daily Mail group, are now admitting openly that HS2 personnel, the directors, and the whole bureaucracy was fleecing hundreds of millions of pounds. Now, there is not one but several ways of spending, responsibly spending public resource. So, one of the excuses that the promoters or the backers of HS2 have used earlier this week, well, during the last 5 days, about Sunak saying that he would use the money saved from not going ahead with HS2 to fix potholes. Now, it may sound trivial, potholes, but it's a serious issue, as illustrated by Peter Hitchens in the Mail when he said that there are all this overwhelming majority of the railway lines across England that needed fixing. And that compared to those overwhelmingly overdue kind of repairs and refurbishments, the country line, the small lines across England, one line, single line, HS2, did not make sense. So Matthew Parris was actually taking part in the propaganda organized by HS2, and he must be lobbying for HS2 himself. Took this elaborate way of confecting a story that his friend who was undergoing the pilot's license training was going to fly over exactly physical territory that he wanted to promote. It's transparently stupid and dishonest. So what he is doing is promoting HS2 by ignoring the reality of the railway transport and being in denial about the actual infrastructure needs that are being ignored by the promoters of HS2, and the falling, the declining demand for HS2, including the fact that there is no demand for high speed madness. We shall come back to Matthew Parris in due course again. Moving on to the Times magazine, which is carrying a piece by Caitlin Moran, who is describing the sexist, misogynist evilness Donald Trump as America's first female president. Is that a way to grab attention? Calling Trump a feminist when Trump is the worst misogynist that has been in office? I'm looking for this Caitlin Moran piece in the Times. So we shall be reading some actual quotations by her. It seems that the magazine, Times Magazine, is increasingly become an excuse for spreading Murdoch's cash into the pockets of columnists on the Times. And she says that this piece is her controversial opinion about Trump. He is America's first female president. Hear me out. Think about it. The candy floss blow dry, the copious use of touche éclat, the bitching. He has post-menopausal woman in a bad marriage energy. Well, this is not an original kind of analytical piece. What she's focusing on is trying to come across as a feminist in that she wants a woman to become the president of America. Now that's fine. But what then? What happens after the gender is changed into female gender? She has nothing to say about the actual behavior of the incumbent, whatever their gender. And she doesn't have anything to say about the role played by women politicians in Congress and in government in America for the last 150 years, let's say. So Caitlin Moran is trying to be in the focus, in the kind of news or in the mentions, as if advocating the political quote progress, as she would say, of women. But the whole of society in the USA is impacted by who is the president, whatever the agenda. Because everything they say, everything they actually back, support, promote, oppose, personify, impacts on everyone alive in society at the time in the USA. So she has not got anything to say about that. Just as Matthew Parris, when he said that he could live on in 1984, he could live on the 27 pound a week that he claimed the benefit recipients were complaining about, moaning about. He couldn't give a shit about the reality. He just wanted to be in the news, which he was. And ever since that, Matthew Parris has done stupid thing after stupid thing so that he can be mentioned. And the most bizarre thing that has been left uncommented on so far as I can see, is his very strange quote, and I say it advisedly, fondness for Bengali teenage boys in Limehouse. What on earth was Matthew Parris doing, having any knowledge of Bengali boys, teenage boys in Limehouse or in any other part of Tower Hamlets? We shall be developing that one to extensive in due course. I'm just making a mention of that to show that Matthew Parris is as dishonest in his Times column today, promoting HS2, as he has been dishonest about promoting Crossrail plot plan against the Brick Lane community in Bethnal Green Bow in 2005. That was 2005, and today is 2023. So it's how long has it been? 18 years. 18 years. So we shall be covering these in more detail in due course. Now there is a piece. Let's see the Times. When Matthew Parris appeared on that Question Time edition, dishonestly coming across as being sympathetic to the NHS, he was in denial about the real truth. The Conservatives, of which he is a kind of disguised promoter of, he didn't talk about the concept of care and compassion. He could not do that because he was born in apartheid Rhodesia and he was raised there with the culture of racism, and he has not dropped a single one of the racist kind of tenets that he learned and grew up in. And the vicious attack on Brick Lane, on the voters of Bethnal Green Bow in July 2005 for voting, for daring to vote for somebody other than Una King, the incumbent. The fact that he could attack the he should have chosen something else. But choosing the very fundamental principle of election voting rights, Matthew Parris showed up and showed off and was shown as the most basic racist that could be imagined. Why would he challenge the right of the voters of Bethnal Green Bow to vote for whoever they wanted to vote for? He took the vote for George Galloway as a betrayal. Betrayal of what? Who gave Matthew Parris the right to say what the voters that Una King had any right to expect to be voted for by the electors of Bethnal and Bow who rejected her. At that time, that is in July 2005, when Matthew Parris's attack on the electors of Bethnal and Bow came to be noticed, there was no indication that Matthew Parris was even aware of Limehouse, let alone the fact that he had a flat in Limehouse, let alone that he was particularly targeting teenage Bengali boys. Why on earth would somebody like Matthew Parris, with his background, want to be targeting teenage Bengali boys in Limehouse or anywhere? Because the campaign against the Crossrail hole that we run and we have run was not about one particular line only. The campaign against the Crossrail hole was and remains a campaign for the defense of the community in the east end of London, and the defense meaning defense not just of the environment, but all the publicly accessible, recognizable elements and entities that are impacted on by the attack collectively mounted on a community. Remember the line? Leslie Garner, the racist woman, was given a space on the Sunday Times on 2nd of December 1973 to mount an attack on the Silotis, the Muslims, the Bangladeshis in Brick Lane, in Whitechapel, in Poplar, in Tower Hamlets, in which piece, completely untruthfully and dishonestly, and ignorantly and stupidly, Leslie Garner said that the Silotis' supposed backwardness included their alleged propensity to eat banana plants back home in Silot. We shall be reading chapter and verse of the Sunday Times article of 2nd of December 1973 in due course, just to illustrate how stupid the attackers of the Silotis, the Bangladeshis, the Muslims of Brick Lane and Tower Hamlets have been. And the Khoodeela campaign is the campaign, part of the movement defending the community in the East End of London, which I founded on the 13th of June 1963. The Khoodeela campaign is the only one that has been defending the pointing out all these attacks accessible publicly. So when Matthew Parris attacks the Silotis, because effectively that is what he was aiming at, for daring to vote against Una King and thereby let in George Galloway, he, Matthew Parris, was asserting that there was some kind of electoral duty on the part of the Silotis, the Bangladeshis, to vote for a particular candidate. That completely dismisses, destroys, and crashes and cancels the electoral right. Now, the Muslim comes in there, doesn't it? So the racists have been canceling the society for decades, for hundreds of years. Liars like Matthew Parris have been doing that for longer than the campaigners who are now being falsely, wrongly accused of having brought about cancel culture. So Leslie Garner has been on the list that Matthew Parris has joined, and the surrogates, like the daughter of a Bengali man and a white woman, Monica Ali. Monica Ali, the prostitute, was paid too much money in advance by an American outfit operating in the UK, who launched the attack on the community that Leslie Garner had attacked in 1973. That was 20 years ago. So 20 years later, Monica Ali was procured as a prostitute to update, as it were, what Leslie Garner had done in 1973. And Leslie Garner's attacks were almost clinically, pathologically, corruptly copied, imitated by Monica Ali in her prostitute book called Brick Lane. Now, all these criminals that have been elected with Bangladeshi majority votes to Tower Hamlets Council, local council, have said that their elections to the Town Council, whatever the elections are and have been, whenever they have been, the main election to the Town Council they have suggested, due to the fact that these electees or elected ones have shown that their allegiance to the community is very much unique and real. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because as we campaign successfully, but despite the opposition by Tar Hamlets councillors, we campaigned against the Crossrail Hole plot against Brick Lane, and we campaigned for the local Tar Hamlets Council to give up its collusion with the Crossrail Hole plot. And the Crossrail Hole plot promoter, Ken Livingston. Ken Livingston knew very much that what he had said to Sarah Bosley, the racist on The Guardian, in March 1992 against me, when I was campaigning against the racist Anne Snelling and the racist establishment over the Stratford Grant maintained school. Because Ken Livingston had said to Sarah Bosley that my status as the campaigner against the GLC's criminality, and in the words of Peter Newsom, against me. If that was the case, that nobody else listened to me, if that were the case, then how was it that in the conversation, in the contract with the Guardian and the Guardian's Sarah Bosley, Ken Livingston was not mentioning anybody else in the community? Nobody else in the community, in Tower Hamlets, in Brick Lane, existed doing the ethical, moral, actual, real campaigns that I alone have been doing. So that was 1992, March 1992, Sarah Bosley of The Guardian. And then you skip decades, let's say, almost, and skip the whole decade of the 1980s. Well, you go backwards to the time when Ken Livingston was claiming to be the target of Margaret Thatcher's attacks on the GLC in the 1980s. And then you skip and you go to that Stratford school campaign that I was leading, organizing in March 1992. And then Ken Livingston was claiming that he had at the GLC evidence that nobody else in the community, by whom he meant the Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets, was listening to me. So he said, doing any campaign or later, as has proven correct and true, what I had been doing in defending the hole. I spoke to the BBC's politics program that was actually broadcast on the 26th of March 2006. But I spoke to the reporter the week before, that was on Tuesday, the week before. Interview with me was quoted to Ken Lyons to Livingstone for his comment. He panicked. He panicked the liar. And what did the panicking liar do? He knew that he had lied about me being ignored by the community. He was the opposite, exact opposite of being ignored. And he was the first one to do the opposite of ignoring me. He sprang into action and he contacted everyone in Crossrail about the Crossrail hole, everyone in the Tony Blair fronted government. And he said, let's drop this alignment, this whole plot against Brick Lane. Let's drop it. And they did. Because he issued a statement on the Friday, because I spoke to the BBC on the Tuesday, and on the Friday, Ken Lyons to Livingstone issued a statement saying that the plan had been shelved, cancelled, exactly as I had been demanding. So Ken Lyons to Livingstone, who last week has been in the news as reportedly being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, he wasn't diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 1992 when he spoke to Sarah Bosley of The Guardian, nor in the 1980s when he hired 6 extra security people to guard County Hall access against me. Ken Lyons to Livingstone, the phrase that I invented, I created for him, Ken lying still Livingstone, means that he has been lying, he has been still lying, meaning that he started with lying and he's still lying. That is what it means, Ken lying still Livingstone. As I said, anything between 200 to 300 episodes of interruptions, political interruptions, action interruptions, I actually actioned, created within County Hall to stop Ken Lyons to Livingstone lying in public. I did that. Any number, 200 to 300, more, not less than 200. So Ken Lyons to Livingstone knew when he spoke to Sarah Bosley of The Guardian who UK, USA, or anywhere else who has physically, politically, ethically, morally, actually, evidentially, transparently, demonstrably stopped somebody holding a key position like Ken Lyons to Livingstone from proceeding with an event, which I did on at least 200 occasions, or taking the details, 300 separate occasions. I completely stopped him in his tracks, hundreds of times, let's say. So this Ken Lyons to Livingstone is lying to Sarah Bosley when he said that nobody was listening to me. So we, that is Ken Lyons to Livingstone, could ignore him, that is Muhammad Haq, me. The eyes. So when I spoke to the BBC on the contacted Ken Lyons to Livingstone and played the film that they recorded with me, and they asked him to comment. What could he say? Could he say that he was a liar? He had lied to Sarah Bosley about me and that nobody was listening to me. Because in March, he could not say that. Because on the 22nd of January, 2006, at the Brady Center, I was the keynote speaker. I was the keynote speaker at the most politically charged rally that took place on behalf of the community and against the local Tar Hamlets Council and the Crossrail plot. And I was the most important contributor, according to third party independent sources, contextually, of course. So, can lie still living in March that in January of the same year, 2006, I had been the most listened to activist campaigner defending the community against his collusion in that position of the expense of the people of London with Crossrail and the Belair fronted regime. So Ken Lyons to Livingstone knew that he could not invent another lie against me to justify his attacks on the community. So he said that let's scrap it. And they scrapped it. Scrapped the plot to dig a hole in the Brick Lane area. And this was then circulated, and the BBC then contacted me, BBC London, and Tim Donovan came to film an interview with me on Friday, the 24th of March 2006, which interview was recorded in Turon Mia's shop. K. Jordan was there with me, but I did the main speaking because that was the range of time available. So I spoke, and this item was broadcast on the BBC London News on the 24th of March 2006. And that was extended and included in the main extended piece on the politics show that was broadcast on the 26th of March 2006, fronted by Tim Donovan. So Ken Lyons Livingstone is a liar, has been a liar. Now the diagnosis that he has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's really doesn't change the fact that he has been a liar. I mean, he can't recognize things now because of the Alzheimer's diagnosis, which is part of the dementia thing. But even before he had dementia, clinical, pathological dementia, he had moral dementia, inertia, and lies in his behavior. And I'm the only person who has been holding the criminal to account. I'm the only one who has been diagnosing the criminal Ken lying still Livingstone. He is the one who has contributed to the imposition of the criminality called the elected mayor in Tower Hamlets. We shall be continuing all of those things, commenting on all of those things in due course. Now, one piece in the Times today, which has got news, politics news, there is a heading to a piece: claws out in fight for Doris's seat. And there is a picture of a kitten. Well, the kitten, the word kitten I use for all cats of all ages, all sizes, and all personalities. There is a picture of a kitten. Let's see on the Times today. What page is it? Is this one? This is the page 12. And let's see what they're saying about the kitten. I don't think they've got a real caption about the kitten. But the kitten has got the picture with its tongue out, not its claws out, because it's standing. So we shall be talking about the kitten and the piece about Nadine Dorries election, the by election that she has caused by resigning. We shall be talking about all of those and other items in due course. We are ending this at 1 hour 16 minutes. And of course, this is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast under the banner of the baby angel Geronimo. All the lies of Ken Livingston Livingstone, all the lies of Boris Johnson, all the lies of Tony Blair, all the lies of other liars, Rishi Sunak, Suella, Ivila, Cruella, all of these lies are under the inspection, observation of baby angel Geronimo, daily witnessing the criminality and being thereby vindicated on every single item of lies. So this is 08:52 hours GMT on Saturday the 30th